the importance of selecting the right provider. So with my son, I had a doctor, and what was important to me back then was not to have too many people in the office. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but sometimes an office can have various doctors that you can see, even though you might have one that you prefer. And I didn't want that, right? I wanted to have my doctor and have that doctor deliver my baby. I was able to find a practice that had just two. They were both women, and there were two doctors. I actually wanted to see the one, she was black, and the other doctor, she was white. But I wanted to actually, have the black doctor deliver my baby, just because I liked her. So that was my first experience. Now, y'all know that I wanted to deliver in a natural birthing center, and that was also very important to me. So when I found out, I let them know, and they were like, okay, that's fine. So anyway, when it comes time for me to deliver, my doctor wasn't available, so she wasn't there. And the moment that Dr. Sherry came in, it was kind of like a off vibe, if I could say that. It was just like she seemed upset, and it was clear that her and the nurse that was there didn't really care for each other. So that immediately put like an added stress, like you need any more stress, right? While you're in labor, that added, it was an added stress to my experience. And she just came off as kind of pushy and just in a rush, I would say, because she was kind of like, okay, well, let's get this thing going. And at the time, I had already been in labor for some hours, and we were trying to get the contractions to be more consistent. And I told you guys in the last video that could have been because Darren had flipped, but at the time it just was, it was a slower process. And because I was in the birthing center, they were fine with it. They were used to it. They're like, okay, we'll just take our time. But when it came time for her, she pretty much gave me a timeline, like, well, if by this time you're not here, then we're gonna have to do this. And so it immediately just put us on edge, on the defensive. And I remember that feeling, like, how when you have enough and it's just like, okay, like, and you want to go off. That's kind of, I had some of those moments. But it was like when you're in labor, you just don't want to take yourself there, right? You have enough going through your mind. And just being a Christian, like, it doesn't always work out like this, but you really do try to stay calm. You really try not to speak negatively, and especially at that sensitive time where I'm in labor, I knew better than to kind of like fall into that. And my husband was great with that, because he was definitely an advocate for me when I feel like she wasn't. So she was there, and she was like basically pushing for to break my water right away. And she also wanted to give me pitocin to ramp up the contractions, and I knew I didn't want that. I was like, no, I don't want that. And so, time is going by, and nothing is really happening to progress me to opening up. They're checking me, and it's uncomfortable, and I'm not really getting anywhere. And so I eventually agreed, like, okay, I'll break my water. So she did that, and I can't remember if I got my water broken first or if the castor shots came first. But anyway, she broke my water, and it didn't do a whole lot. And then she was saying like pitocin, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And I just remember like going into the bathroom with my husband, and we were just praying, because the baby wasn't, it didn't seem like I was progressing, and I'm having this pressure from my doctor to do something that I'm not comfortable with doing. And on the other side, the nurse is, trying to help me, but she's like, I'm not the doctor, so we gotta, do something to get this going. I was getting kind of frustrated. I remember going to the bathroom, my husband, we prayed, and then we just came out like, look, we're not getting pitocin. We're gonna do it the way that we want to do it, and just get in line with that. And so she wasn't necessarily happy about that, but she had to go with that. So eventually, obviously, I progressed, and I was able to get to the point of pushing. And like I told y'all, Darren was flipped. They didn't even know until he came out. So I had a really hard time pushing. I was in a lot of pain and discomfort when it came to pushing. What I will say, what was good about Dr. Sherry, she got the baby out. You know, she did. I tore. I had a second-degree tear, but she was really like, although she was rushing me when it came time for me to push, she really took her time and like trying to massage and trying to help get the baby out to where, you know, I I didn't tear, or that it was at least minimal. And I feel like she did do that. But y'all, my experience was negative in regards to her, and I wouldn't do it again. And so that brings me to when it came time where I knew that we was gonna want to have another baby. It was probably like a year and a half to 2 years before. I'm like, I need to find another OBGYN because there's no way that I'm going through them again. Like, the headbutting of the nurse and the doctor is just totally uncalled for. So I started the search. I'm like on Facebook, like, who y'all go to? I need a good one who's gonna advocate for natural delivery. And so that was my primary goal. And then I found a place that they had midwives and they worked under the doctor. And so it was actually probably about 5 or 6 doctors, I want to say, and then again maybe 5 or 6 midwives. But my insurance covered it because I really wanted a doula, and I had someone in mind, but my insurance wouldn't cover it, and I didn't have the money to spend on it, you know. So I'm just like, Lord, where can I go where my insurance will cover it, and they're midwives. I want a midwife. So he showed me this place, and I'm like, okay. So I went there for my annual visit. You know, it wasn't nothing special. Typical doctor's office where, you know, you got some staff that are friendly and then some that are just like, meh, you know. I go there once a year, but I'm going because I want a midwife. So fast forward that when I find out that I'm pregnant, there was a cyst on one of my ovaries and it was pretty large when I first went. So I was going I think every other week for a while, every other week for them to continue to check the size of the cyst to make sure that it was shrinking. So I had went through quite a few of these people, and it might have been more than 6 doctors. I feel like it was more doctors, but they're all women, right? And I'm just going through them, and again, no one is actually standing out to me. And I just said, Lord, you know, it's all these people working in here, right? A lot of people could deliver this baby, but I'm like, give me the right person for me. At the time, you know, of course, I don't know who that is, but I'm like, Lord, you know, so you have the right person to deliver the baby, and let them be on that day when I deliver the baby. And so I said that, and I cast the care. So anyway, I had got to probably 3 appointments before I'm supposed to deliver, and in comes Tracy. And you know, up until this point, like I said, the experience, it wasn't nothing to write home about. But when she came into the room, and I had been waiting for a little bit, and she's like, I had pulled out my mask because I'm waiting, you know. And when she came in, I just smiled, and she was like, oh, does Darren have your dimples? And I was like, huh? Like, it really caught me off guard. That just started the conversation. She obviously looked at my chart, found his name, you know, and used that to connect. And I could really appreciate that because it doesn't take much to do that, right? But no one had ever done it. Then, as the appointment went on, she was very personable. She explained everything. She wasn't in a rush. And granted, none of the other people were necessarily in a rush, but it was just something different. And you can tell when you're like really kind of vibing with the person. I don't know why I can't think of connecting, when you're really connecting with someone. And that's how I felt with Tracy. That's what I was doing with her. And then at the point where she was like, she flipped her computer around and she scooted over next to me and showed me what she was looking at. When she checked the heartbeat of the baby, you know how many times we gotta lay on that thing, she actually gave me her arm to lift me back up. And I feel like that was so important for me because no one had done that up until this point. I'm telling y'all, I told y'all I went to multiple appointments because I had more than usual, and no one had done that. Not in the ultrasound room, not when I had my the appointments with the doctors, not none of the midwives. They didn't do that, and I was like, "You're the first person to do that." And she was like, "What?" She was like, oh no, like I have to apologize on the behalf of my colleagues. Like that just shouldn't be. And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, especially because we're in a practice of all women. They're all women. And I'm sure some of them have experienced that. Like it's hard to lift up, especially as you get further along. And she was the only person to do that. And I was just like, by the end of that, I told her, I was like, I love you. I was like, I want you to deliver my baby. And I was like, so serious. And she was just, we hugged. We hugged after that appointment. And so I had another appointment with her after that, and it was the same experience. I'm like, man, I hope she just wasn't just in a really good mood that day. The next appointment, I was supposed to see the last midwife, and she was actually a black one. So I hadn't had the appointment with her yet, and I'm thinking all this time like, I probably would want her, but I never got a chance to meet her because, of course, Raina came early. So Tracy, she was just like, you know what? Don't be concerned. Like, I'm gonna bring everything to you. So she did, and I told y'all how she just set up the room, the lighting. She brought everything to me to where I didn't miss out on anything because she knew that that was important to me. She was like, you still can have a natural delivery in this room. It'll be fine. And I could really appreciate her positivity. You know, she was like that the whole time. Cause y'all know when you in labor and delivery, when you just in a difficult situation, when you're facing something, your thoughts are already going, and it's enough to keep those thoughts in check, right? I talked about numerous times where I had the opportunity to be afraid, but I know enough to be like, not voice those things, especially in the moment. So when you have somebody that is encouraging you to think positive, to not give into thoughts of concern or worry, and this is her telling me like, don't even think about that. When I would tell her about, like, when I talked about like the position of the baby from last time, or am I doing okay, am I, because I'm, when you at 3 for a while at 3 centimeters, and you like, well, how much longer is this gonna be? She like, don't worry about that. Just think positive, don't be concerned about that. I could appreciate that because, on the contrary, with my doctor from Darren, she was putting that pressure on me, like, we got to do this because of this and this, you don't want to wait, blah blah blah. So she even, like, from the beginning, y'all, she told me about Pitocin. She told me about that, and really what it would do. And she asked me, what would you like to do, and I told her, I don't want to do that right now. And she was like, okay, just throwing it out there. It's not a big deal. It's not something that we have to really be concerned about now, but I'm just letting you know because, and she brought it up because she was like, because your water has already broken, you don't want to really wait too long before delivering. And that was like 24 hours, And she was like, no, I wouldn't recommend, because I asked her, well, what do you recommend? Because at this point, I had built up a trust with her. I knew that she would tell me the truth. At least I felt that she would. And she was like, it's up to you. It's early now. We don't have to do it. But she was like, I wouldn't wait, 24 hours. I wouldn't wait that long before, deciding or, doing something. I'm like, okay. And I was fine. So throughout the labor, y'all, she's massaging me. She's doing things with my hips. I got in various positions, leg up, squatting down with the leg up on the bed, on all fours. I was sitting up, walking, just various positions. And she massaged me, y'all. Like, she actually got in and touched me. And, you really don't get that now. And even though she was delivering the baby, I'm talking about before. She was very hands-on. She stayed in the room with me, y'all. Like, after she had delivered, because it was someone else that was delivering too, but after she delivered that other baby, she came in my room, and I think she maybe stepped out once, but she stayed with me the entire time. Even when I was like dozing off, I could feel her like kind of rubbing me, to the point where it was like I felt like she was my doula. Because my mom was there, she was coaching me the first time. Danelle was there with me the first time, walking around with me and everything. She told them y'all get some rest because y'all gonna need it for when she's gonna need the help when she pushes. But they were able to sleep, and I felt pretty comfortable with that. Until the pain started really ramping up. But she was like, just I got this pretty much, and she did. And between her and my nurse, because I had a really good nurse too, her name was Marie. She was so good. Between them two, like, I just felt like I was in such good hands. So what I'm saying is, for me, I knew that I wanted a midwife. That was on my heart, right? And God honored that, to the point where the very person I was supposed to have, I told you, I didn't meet her. I had all these other appointments. I didn't meet her until like the second to last appointment. And I knew right away that she was the one. And then of course it was the trusting part, right? Like, okay, I've met her, but there's no guarantee that she's gonna be working when I go into labor. But she walk in, I'm like, thank you, Lord. You know what I mean? Like, I was so relieved when she walked in and she actually delivered my baby, to the point where her shift was up at 7. And I remember when I was at 3, around I was at 3 or 5, like around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was nervous because I'm thinking like, man, 7 is gonna roll around, she gonna have to leave. So I'm like, Lord, just work it out. On top of the fact that I was in pain. So I'm like, how much longer? So she stayed with me. And then finally, when I'm like, I can't take no more, she checks me and she's like, well, it's time to push. I'm like, thank God. So anyway, Raina came just before 8 o'clock in the morning, and she stayed with me. And I just remember saying like,
good job, baby.
I'm just gonna.
thank you. Thank you for staying.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't gonna leave.
She stayed with me. She stayed with me to the end. So my point in it all, this time it was more important for me to have a midwife and to have somebody that would encourage and be supportive of the decision that I had made of having a natural delivery. So that was more important to me. So I just want to encourage you guys to just trust God. When you put that prayer out there, ask him to tell you where to go, to show you who the right people will be. So I just had to trust God, and he worked it out so perfectly. So I want to encourage you with that. And even like with the black and white, because I know a lot of us, we prefer to have a black doctor. And I do have a black primary doctor, and I don't think it's anything wrong with that. But what you really want is the right person. You want the right person for you at the stage that you're at. So don't just discount someone because they're not the right color, and you have that in your mind. Like, just go with peace. When you ask God, and he'll show you the right person, because that was clutch for me. I could have easily just been like, I don't want to go to that place because they got too many people working up in there, too many doctors, too many hands, too many people I gotta see, and I would have missed out on her. So that was my experience with choosing a midwife over a doctor this time around. Now it could be flip-flop. Maybe you get a doctor that's a really, really good, and they support you and they're there for you like a midwife would be, and it might just be like switched around. So again, it's just important for y'all to ask God to help you to navigate where you're supposed to go, and who you're supposed to see. So I hope that this helped you guys. I hope that I didn't talk y'all ear off. And I told her, like, my experience was what it was a lot because of you. And I think we can discount that. So if you're working in a field, or just you're in your job, don't discount what your smiling face can do, what your professionalism can do. It's so uncommon now. They don't, so many doctors, they don't want to touch you, they don't want to like get in there with you. They're kind of just sterile or kind of standoffish. And even when you have a conversation with them and y'all might laugh, it's not like, oh man, I feel safe like trusting you with this, with things that I don't know, and you telling me what I need to do, and as opposed to you're just trying to hurry up and get me out of here. Like, do it as unto the Lord. Be excellent with it, and do your best to connect with the people that you're coming across, because that goes such a long way and it's so appreciated, especially now. So I feel like I'm rambling now, but anyway, I hope that this helps you guys. I will talk to y'all on the next video. If you guys are kind of wondering about a midwife or a doctor, or you have any other questions, let me know in the comments. Are you guys currently seeing a midwife? Do you guys have a preference of who you will want to deliver your child? Why or why not? All right, I will talk to y'all on the next video.